In this wonderful session that we've had today, we've heard different approaches of gathering information, of gathering data. In a sense, the work of the genealogist today is multi-level. First of all, has to understand something about names, onomastics. So not only personal names, but family names, nicknames, kinuyim. Also different types of customs of naming called paponymy, named after a grandfather. Now, there's also an aspect of names that is becoming more interesting and popular, and that is the giving of stigmatic names, names that are pejorative, that are genai, shemot genai. In other words, that people have applied those names, if it was the government giving a family name, or more often it was the community wanting to punish somebody. So if I take an example that Rabbi Meir, the Tana, back in 195 or so of the Common Era, was punished. And he was punished by the rabbis in the Sanhedrin, calling him Acher, Acherim Omrim. Others say. Now, of course, here, Rabbi Meir was perhaps the first onomastician of the Jewish people. He studied names. So by giving him a punishment by blotting out his name, that could be the worst thing. Especially if the name reminded others of his teacher, who was Acher, Elisha ben Abua, who was ostracized and was excommunicated. So the aspect of names, customs, and as Moshe presented, also the halachot that come out of the Seder Gitin are all aspects of studying the names and what they mean. If the modern names, Arabic names, Turkish names, Romaniot names, all of these things are aspects of the study of onomastics today. And of course, if we're talking about yichus, so we're talking also about, is it a priestly name or is it a Levitic name? In other words, this is Jewish yichus. This is Jewish tradition. And the question is whether the name Kohen is really a Kohen or not a Kohen. So you need a name like Kohen Tzedek, the true Kohen. And that name may cover up the fact that he's not a true Kohen. So you have all of these things going on. But when we study Jewish genealogy, we're also studying, as we heard this afternoon, Jewish geography. Because sometimes a person's name is a toponym, is named after where he came from or where he settled. But it also reflects Jewish settlement, and it also reflects patterns of migration from one place to another, as we heard in the last lecture. So that all of these things are going on. Now, what about documentation? And I think everybody has picked up in the Jacobi papers and the Sidrei Gitin of Rav Pipano and what Yaakov finds in the internet. All of these are, what are our sources? Now, perhaps there are other types of sources as well. Literature, epigraphy, inscriptions that are found outside of the what's written on the wall, names written on the wall. And so the whole aspect of gravestones, which we haven't taken up today at all. And then, of course, in the study of Jewish genealogy today, there's a whole modern aspect of what about Jewish diseases? What about DNA, checking out DNA? And all of these aspects come into play in studying Jewish genealogy. Now, what I would like to do today is look at a family that goes back to the rabbinic period. The family is the family of the great Rabbi Abaye, who lived about 300 of the Common Era in Pumbedita, right? Pumbedita, you know who came from Pumbedita? the 20th century is Saddam Hussein from that area, but it wasn't called Pumbedita. In any case, I want to take up the case and try to show you how a modern genealogist looks at an ancient family. So this is what we're going to look at quickly now, because we don't have too much time. Number one, we find in the Gemara the following statement: Amalei Rabbi Papa the Rabbi Bai. Rabbi Papa had an argument, a discussion, and so he had a discussion with Rabbi Bebai. Rabbi Bebai is the son of Abaye. And what does he tell him? Mishum da'atitu mamulai amritu mile mulaita. Now this is almost poetic. It is a parallelism. It is a statement that's repeated 6 times in the Talmud. And it's built on 3 words plus another 3 words, with the assonance of the mem, mamluai, mulaita, milai, right? You see, it's almost literary. And what does it mean? We don't know exactly. It says like this: Mishum, because your family is mamulai, therefore you say words that are broken up, are shortened, are circumcised. You don't give us a complete picture. In other words, what Rabbi Papa is saying is that your name Mamlai, that collective name, that family name for you, says something about your family that you don't give a complete statement. It's a stigmatic name. He wants to apply this name as a stigma to the statements of Rabbi Bebai. Now Rashi on the spot says, I don't know what that word Mamlai means, but it looks like it's derived from umlala. That's not French. Umlala, right? It's something bad. He says, in English it would be, since you come from an unfortunate family, your words are impaired. And by saying mulaita, they're circumcised from milah. So that's what we have there. Now, if you look down, why is this family? What is their DNA? Why are they impaired? What kind of burden do they carry? Well, this family of Abaye were priestly family, and they had a family tradition, an oral family tradition, that they are descendants of Eli HaKohen from Shiloh. And that family was cursed. And the statement is here in the Bible, in Shmuel, Aleph, Perek Bet, your family, yitalchu lifanai ad olam, your family will serve forever. Aval meheyot zakein bebeitecha. You will all die young. The men will die young. Lo yeh zakein bebeitcha kol hayamim. Underline. V'chol marbit beitcha yamutu anashim. Terrible, terrible curse from the time of Eli, 1100 BCE, until Abaye, 300 of the Common Era. So we're looking at a 1300-year tradition that this family of priests are carrying with them. And so not only are they carrying with them, but everybody else in the community, in the yeshiva of Pumbedita, knows that. So when Rav Papai says, Mishum de atitu mumlai, that you are mumlai, we know that you're not saying you don't give a good class. Terrible. So the community is involved. That makes it a stigmatic name. Now, what does it mean, mamlai? So it's up to Rabbeinu Hananel. Rabbeinu Hananel lived about 1100, no, before that. He lived about 1000 of the Common Era. He lived in Kairouan, in Tunis. And he says, wait a second, Mamlai is a place name that's found in the Galil. And how do I know that? From the Midrash. And he says, what's the story there? That Rebbe Meir went around in the villages of the Galil, and he came to a village, And looks around, he says, what's going on here? Everybody is chorei rosh. There are no white hairs in this town. It's all a young town. What's going on here? It's a priestly town. And he says, Rabbi Meir, to them, perhaps you are descendants of Eli Kohen and suffer from this curse. And I said, sure, Rabbi, save us. What should we do? So Rabbi Meir says, study Torah, teach Torah, and give gemilut chasadim, give charity, and that will save you. So Rabbeinu Hananel, now living 1,000 of the Common Era in Kairouan, says, look, I've solved the problem here of this Gemara. Mamlai is that you come from a place called Mamla. It's a place name. Where is that place in the Galil? So now let's look and find that place name. And if you look down, I brought two sources from Eretz Yisrael. The first source on the left is a kina, is a lamentation that we say on Yom Tisha B'Av. And that lamentation was written by HaKalir, Rabbi Elazar HaKalir, great poet of Eretz Yisrael, lived about 700 or 800 of the Common Era. And Rabbi Kalir says that the 24 courses of priests, Kav Dalet Mishmarot Kohanim, that live in these little villages around the town. Now, he goes through the whole list in his lamentation, and shows that the 17th Mishmeret, the 17th family, lived in a place called Mamlach. Mem Lamed Chet. So now what do we hear now? We hear the difference in the dialect from Eretz Yisrael that pronounced the place Mamlach, and the Babylonians who didn't pronounce that Chet, and they called it Mamlah. So you are Mamlai, and so now we understand what's going on. Now coordinating that, further corroborating that identification, is an epigraphic find that was made in the Byzantine period in several synagogues, or in the debris of several synagogues. This one from Caesarea, fragments were found with the 24 courses of families. Now that order is based on the Book of Chronicles, and that order is kept from the Book of Chronicles sometime in the Persian period straight through into the later periods. Now, in the synagogues in Eretz Yisrael and in the Galil or in Caesarea or in other places, and there's even one example found in Yemen from dated 1000 of the Common Era. So this idea that every Shabbat has a name according to the Mishmeret, according to the group of priests, which the family priests, that family that served during that week twice a year. And they would probably read this list in order to remember it. And so these inscriptions were placed there to help the congregation know the 24 Mishmerot. And what do you see here in this one from Caesarea? Now, all that was found in Caesarea are 3 little fragments. But Professor Aviona completed that on the basis of all the other documents. And so we see in one of the sections that is preserved, the family of Chazir, Chet Yud Zayin Yud Reish, from Mamlach. And that's the 17th course. So what do we see here now? Now, the things are starting to come together. So that we now know that the family that claims, the priestly family that claims descent from Eli Kohen, lives in Mamlach, in Eretz Yisrael. And where is Mamlach? Mamalia. It's north of Marar in the Galil, and it is west of Tiberias, of Tiberia. And so what are we starting to put things together? Now, Abaye's uncle was Rabbah, and he studied with him. Rabbah was the head of the yeshiva in Pumbedita. But Rabbah was pressed by his brothers, Rabbi Yoshaya and Hanina, to study with Rabbi Yochanan in Tiberia, to come back to Eretz Yisrael and study in Tiberia. And the Gemara tells us that he did spend some time in Tiberia. But not only that, but the Yerushalmi, Talmud Yerushalmi tells us that there was a scholar by the name of Rabbi Yossi Mamlachaya who died. And Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish came to give them comfort, to give the family comfort. So they came up, Alu Saliku, they came up from Tiberia to Mamalia. So what we're finding here is that this place was known as the home of the families of these priests. And in all likelihood, Abaye was from that village. And how do we know that? Because the friends of his son was cursing them out and saying, since you're Mamlai, you don't know how to give a good lesson. So this is all coming through from one thing to another here. Now, we also know from this that the family was a family called Chazir. The name itself is a problem, and it probably is reflected in Professor Levenstam. Late Professor Levenstam said it is a term for a occupation that he found in Uyghurite. So look, the things are starting to get spread out, but there is some that possibility. Now, what do we know about this family of Chazir? Well, we know about something else. If you go down to the Kidron Valley, and all of you have seen Yad Avshalom, right? Now, next to Yad Avshalom is the kever of Bnei Chazir, and they have left us an inscription. Now, that kever, that monument, is pre-destruction of the second temple. So what we're looking at now is another link back. Probably the family lived in the Jerusalem area, and so set up a monument over there. Now, I wrote out here what the names are here, but that's not important right now. Now, number 7, if you look at number 7, I tried to map out the family tree to the extent that we can localize it regarding Abaye. So if you look to the left, Abaye's grandfather was Nachmani. Nachmani had 4 sons that we know of, and Kalil was the father of Abaye. But Abaye, that's not his real name. That's his nickname. Abaye's real name was Nachmani. So what we're looking at here, again, is the example of paponymy. So what we learned about names, we see it here. It's paponymy. He's named after his grandfather. But his uncle, in respect for his late father, Nachmani, said, I can't call this baby, this pitcher that's going around, Abaye, this little boy, I can't call him by the name of Nachmani. It would be disrespectful to my father. So he calls him Abaye, Tatale, little Abba. Okay? So he calls him Abaye. So look what we have here. We're talking about Abaye, he has a nickname. That nickname is the one he's known by. But yet, the sources tell us that he's named after his grandfather. His official name was Nachmani. Now, of course, Nachmani, or Abaye, marries twice. And the first wife, at least twice, the first wife was the mother of his children, among whom was Rav Beibai. And of course, there's another story that he married a much younger lady whose name was Homa, and she had also lineage that went back to Rav Yehuda, her great-grandfather, who was the student of Shmuel, and also of Rav. In other words, a great rabbi of 3 generations back. And so this is what we're looking at here. Now, once I gave this lecture, somebody got up and said to me, our family tradition is that we are descendants of Eli HaKohen. Wow. What is your name? My name is Tawil. And we come from Chaleb. Right? Now, wait a second. When you say Tawil, what do you mean?
Tawil Kohen.
Tawil Kohen. Because when you say Tawil, and again, this is the question that we've been raising here, again, about the Arabic names. And again, whether we're talking, yes, we're talking about either etymology. As Rabbi Yoel says, he's a tall man. He's a langa, right? As we say in Ashkenaz. Now, that would be the normal term if you're looking and taking names from etymology only, right? Now, if you're coming from Morocco and you're a Tawil, Tawil. But if you
what?
Okay. Yitzchak. Let me just finish. So I finish in time. So I feel good about that. Okay.
Time for the next speaker.
Yeah. Okay. That's Yitzchak. Now, what happens is this: when you're studying names, you can approach names from various ways. One, the first way is etymology. So here, Tawil means tall. What does it mean? It is a name that is a personal or physical, describes a personal or physical aspect of that family, or the founder of the family, or the one who took on that name at first. But also there's another aspect, and that is the cultural aspect, the folkloristic aspect of a name, what it may imply. So when I asked him, why is your name, why is Tawil? He says, look, when I go up to read the Torah and I make my blessing, the congregation, who also know that I am a descendant of Eli Kohen, and that I may be troubled by the fact that I will not live long, they say to me, Yitawal Umrak. Yitawal Umrak. May the Lord increase your life. Tawil Umrak. That your life is long. So look how beautiful this is. This is a tikkun, a repapai, right? So now, the potential of having a name which is stigmatic turns around and becomes a blessing in the mouths of the other congregants who say, may God bless you for a long life. And so what I've tried to show here is that when a modern genealogist looks at something like this, he goes through all these stages of research. Number one, of gathering all the possible sources, data, whether it be the literary Gemara, the repetition of this statement, Repapai. The second, to look if there is any epigraphic evidence. Can other things be corroborated and brought together? So part of the game is to be a detective and to bring all of these little elements together. And once we've done that and found that the name Mamlai is also a geographic term, it's also a toponym, and then so we can begin to pinpoint where this family comes from. And then we see how it develops and how the rabbis in North Africa, in Tunis, the rabbis, the Tosafis in northern France react to this, and all of them come together to explain the passage in the Gemara. And then how there is a priestly family that says it's now 3,000 years that we are passing along this information. It's part of our folklore. It's part of our identity. And so the modern genealogist looks at that and then says, well, do you want to take a DNA test? Do you want to see what is the problem? What is the gene problem in your family that you've inherited from Zaidi Eli. Well, I don't know whether anybody's going to go along with that, but in any case, what we're looking at are the same components that we find in the text that a modern genealogist can start to draw out. Thank you very much.